if you're going to continue to neglect the basic foundational elements of what right looks like. If you don't have that in place first, it doesn't matter what technology you're going to put in place.
Welcome to the Trend Detection Podcast, powered by Siemens. And now your host, Niall Sullivan.
Hello, and welcome to the latest episode of the Trend Detection Podcast. I'm really pleased to be joined by someone I've got to know very well via LinkedIn. I've actually been on your podcast as well, Greg, but it's really lovely to invite you onto Trend Detection today. We're going to talk about CMMS, which I do struggle to say, so I'm going to try to limit how much I say it. It's going to be difficult because we're actually going to talk about Greg's experience over 25 plus years. Don't want to give away your age there, Greg, but you've got a lot of experience in this area, and it's going to be really fascinating to sort of discuss this topic with you, as it obviously very closely relates to a lot of the work we're doing at Senseye and Predictive Maintenance as well. Lots of overlap there. But I guess before we get started, Greg, it'd be great if you sort of introduce yourself to the audience. Over to you.
All right. Well, Niall, it's awesome to be here. Thanks for inviting me. My name's Greg. I'm the host of CMMS Radio and been doing the podcast for a little over 3 years. And my background was in the CMMS space. I was a co-founder of a solution. Thanks to our awesome founder, we did a couple of businesses together, and everything I've done really up until starting the podcast had to do with the maintenance management industry, a little bit in e-commerce, and the whole idea behind, like SaaS and CMMS, for me, it was born out of past experiences, work I did when I was younger, a business we built prior to launching the CMMS, and then I've stuck with it after we sold it a couple of years, and then kind of left that gig one way or another, and here I am doing the podcast. It's a real pleasure for me. Love connecting with people like you, people to get their journey stories. So that's kind of me in a nutshell, I guess.
No, fantastic. We're going to dive much deeper into that as well. But the only place to start, really, I guess, is talk about your sort of vast experience, Greg. I guess what drew you into sort of this space and has kept you in this space for so long. I guess that's and started a podcast based on it as well, because that shows you've obviously got a great passion for it. So where did that come from?
So it really goes back to my teen years, the kind of work that I did being from the Midwest. We did things like janitorial. We worked in manufacturing, big or small. And then, when I say we, when I got into the CMMS space, it was because of our founder of a solution platform. His name is Sean Dawson. Now, he's dearly departed, watching us from above, but I want to shout him out because I'm more of a co-founder on the ventures that we did together, kind of like living in that number 2 spot, doing a lot of that work, business development, road paving, and all that. So what I mean by that is for the business, not actually working on roads. When we were young, we worked in different trades related, manufacturing related, and other similar businesses, not just together, but for others, and we would learn. And then getting out to the West Coast, Sean started a building maintenance company, and I jumped in and helped him grow it. Then I went off, did a few other things. Then I came back, and we grew it some more. And it was right there where we really essentially dialed in our process for how we manage facilities and building maintenance operations, how we manage customer relationships, and all those, things, the goodness. And we did that the hard way, with paper. We really wanted to follow through and differentiate by doing what we said we were going to do, and that required documentation. We later got some software. We used a couple of other pieces of technology, such as spreadsheets, to manage different aspects of what we do. Fast forward into the early 2000s, and Sean started to build a platform to manage that whole process the way we worked. And our clients were the ones using it with our account management process, all of that. They wanted to use it for other workloads that we weren't involved in. So he started another company, another venture, and then I jumped in to build that. That's where I really got deep in the weeds on CMMS. What is it? Why is it? Is it just work orders? Is it assets? Is it preventive maintenance? Is it inventory? On and on like that. And been doing something with that ever since. We sold that bad boy in 2018. A little bit bittersweet for me because I wasn't ready to sell, but our two partners were ready to do some other stuff. So I said, all right, let's do it, guys. I don't want to hold you back. And then I went along for that ride. I kind of mentioned that earlier for about 2 years. And that leads me up to right here and right now. I think I answered your question, but there's one little part I might have missed, which was where the passion comes from. Am I right about that?
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, for so long, as well. It's,
so the passion, I think, for me is really in how I've been in different parts of the industry, worked with so many facilities managers, maintenance managers. I now talk to countless maintenance and reliability professionals, like real deal, and all those things kind of feed that passion. And I think maintenance people, top to bottom, all of them are salt of the earth. They really want to get stuff done. I love being a part of telling and sharing that story. I like to try to learn from every conversation. And I really am after this idea of chasing the elusive win-win. I want conversations, business dealings, all these things to really yield dividends for all parties. So I think that's where it really comes from, is a passion for what I've been involved in and seeing it unfold with success for so many people and solving problems one way or another. I think is always fascinating when you can get somebody the outcome that they want rather than just taking their money. So I like to play with that theme a lot. I call people out kind of hard, maybe not too hard, but that's where the passion comes from. I mean, even with what you do, I mean, you see it, the people you get to talk to all these years with what you've been doing, it's rewarding. And I'm not talking about money.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I like that focus on business outcomes because when I joined Senseye, obviously pre-acquisition, I was always impressed by that focus. It wasn't about, because it's a great product, great AI product, Gen AI product, really cool, but it was always focused on like the outcomes for the customer, not on, hey, look at our cool AI product, look how cool it is, it does this and this. It was always a focus on that from the very start. And so I just wanted to call that out as well. But on your journey, Greg, selling 2 businesses, very, very impressive, but you must have learned a lot from that, I mean, what did you learn? What are the key things you learned from both of those?
Wow. That's a simple yet really, really big question because there's so many ways I can go in on that. And things I learned were really throughout my career and throughout being in industry. I think what I learned is it's far more important to listen to what the needs are, focus in on what the problem is to solve that rather than pushing what you're selling. I think I learned that. I also learned a lot about, I'm not the best at being coachable. I'm pretty aggressive at times and it takes me a minute to let that sink in, but I was pretty good, I think, at learning from the people I was around. And that really, I think, is what helps me the most, is when I realize, oh, you're not learning anything here. Slow down and listen instead of, waiting for your turn to talk, that kind of stuff. I think when it comes to overall industry and maintenance or manufacturing, anything in between, I also learned a lot about what the real outcomes are environment by environment, and the realization that even if they're the same environments, they're not the same. You got to always slow down a minute to kind of understand what's really, really happening in that environment. So, for example, if I have 2 manufacturers that, let's say, for example, they want to leverage technology or not, maybe they've got things going on with production of, let's say, tire manufacturers. Well, they might be identical in the industry, but their environment's going to be different. The pieces of equipment they use might be the same, but different brands, the way they run them, how they're operated. And they might also have differing cultures in how they achieve their own maintenance excellence or operational excellence for throughput. And you have to always give that little bit of space, I think I learned to understand them from where they're at before you come over the top with your solutions and your ideas. Yeah, and I've got a story about that, a recent one, if you want to hear it.
Yeah, right, let's go for it. Stories are great.
Yeah, so recently I was out in Spartanburg, South Carolina, and I was with a friend of mine, Brian Bieski, and a bunch of great people at a manufacturing facility, and we were having a little conversation and kind of working some stuff out, whiteboarding some naming conventions within their CMMS platform, and that concept came up where, sometimes people come in and they want to fit their perspective and understanding to the client's environment, and it really has to be the other way around. The takeaway, just to keep the story short, was that if you've got something in place that's working in your naming conventions, your asset hierarchies, the way you manage, let's say, tool rooms and parts rooms and inventory storage, if that's working, you don't always have to meet a particular standard, say, for example, like an ISO standard, spot on, like top to bottom. There's kind of a hierarchy within those standards, and bottom line is you got to go with what works for the client rather than trying to change them to what you know and understand. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's pretty common out there, and I think a lot of folks, software consultants, even team members, they're trying to do what they do rather than taking that breath, taking that beat, and going, wait a minute, what's working here? So I kind of went from a story to a soapbox. Sorry about that.
I mean, do you often see, maybe from a CMMS point of view, that the technologies are, we want a CMMS, but there's often not too much thought about why, and when we mention our business outcomes, is that quite often the case? It's like, and it's the same with predictive maintenance. It certainly is from our point of view.
Yeah, well, first of all, it's all over the board as to the why, the how, the when we're getting CMMS platforms. And there's also this ongoing theme of having technologies in place that are not built on people and process. And what I mean by that is you might have systems that aren't meeting the needs. You might have systems in place that are meeting the needs, but somebody says they don't like it and they come in and want to change it. There's also a tendency for clients and vendors alike. I want to be mindful, right? I want to be fair, but there are no magic silver bullets. The CMMS, the EAM, the other technologies, the AI, whether it's surface level or actual, real impactful functionality or technology, none of that is going to work unless you take a very intentional approach to how you're implementing those solutions. It is always going to go back to the basics. Your team, you got to get buy-in, you got to get leadership understanding maintenance and operations, you got to get them kind of understanding leadership. That's really hard to do. That's why we're always going to see this change over and over and over and over. The thing you can do there is have contingency plans. Now, obviously, we could spin out and go on this, CMMS 101 journey, but I'll sum that up too. When you're dealing with CMMS or related technologies in your maintenance and reliability programs, facilities management, all of it, you've got to know what you're doing and why you're doing. And if you don't, there might be a few exceptions, but slow down just a little bit before you move forward and put your vendors to the test when they're trying to help you. If they're helping you, you're golden. If they're selling you, just be wary, ask them really hard questions. I think most of them want to come through for you. So sorry about the background noise. We got a little noise going on if you hear any howling.
No, that's okay. Often my cat likes to make an appearance. Hasn't done yet, though. So, but it's all good. Pets are welcome on trend detection. It's all good.
Oh, yeah.
But in terms of that role, we talk about technology, but the role of CMMS, because I think there's been a lot of advancements in, even over the past year, I guess, with Gen AI and things coming onto the scene. But how do you sort of see, is CMMS still sort of relevant in this world of Gen AI? I guess we could start there. I mean, is it maybe it's a bit of a start question, really, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. It's absolutely relevant. And the thing that's not going to go away and the thing that's at risk is if those basics go away. If people continue, whoever, you decide for yourself. I'm not here to judge anybody, but if you're going to continue to neglect the basic foundational elements of what right looks like, if you don't have that in place first, it doesn't matter what technology you're going to put in place. And I will tell you something interesting I learned recently about AI as it relates to CMMS is if it's the right kind of AI, the right kind of programmatic, algorithmic, machine learning tool that is taught right and is doing the right things, that can really help you. But I don't think CMMS is really going to go away. I do think there's going to be a few changes where people are going to go in from a technology angle that was once tried in the past that's going to actually maybe make a strong comeback. But I'm not much of a like a sage or an oracle when it comes to that. But I think part of your question was where the technology is really going. And I think there's going to be a couple of companies out there that go in on the VR technology again, because now there's so much more understanding of what it is, how it is, and we're seeing good use case support for how that actually works, where you can actually see what's potentially going to be done and all these different things about leveraging that technology. I do think on the AI, I think we're going to see a continued washout of the surface level AI. There's going to be a few that sneak in there that don't do much, but it looks and sounds like it's really great stuff, but it's not doing anything. Sorry, just being straight up. Not sorry. The other thing you're going to see is actual AI. When the smoke clears, you're going to see some real good things. I see a few companies out there that are doing that. I'm not the expert. This is what's really important about me and CMMS Radio is, like, maybe I'm a certain type of expert, but that's kind of problematic. My job is to find stories, tell stories, chirp a little bit about stuff I don't like. I don't know if I'm right, and I'm here to take the smoke. But the AI thing really is concerning to me overall, in CMMS or otherwise, because it can potentially make us lazy in what we do, or more so what we don't do. We stop maintaining the AI, we stop maintaining the CMMS, we stop maintaining our people and processes that were actually making an impact, because there's that set it and forget it mentality, and that is not a thing. It just is not a thing. If that's where you're at, well, we can just set that and forget it. Rare, very, very rare. That's it. Soapbox over.
Yeah, no, of course. I mean, we're always talking about within the Senseye context, the importance of human. It's not a replacement tool; it's actually a supplement. So it's like a virtual reliability engineer or something like that. So it's almost another teammate, but it's not a replacement for for anyone. It's not going to be there. You only get as much value out of it if humans actually use it and take action based on what it's telling you, right? So,
augmentation.
Yeah, exactly. And we haven't talked about sort of like the implementation side either, because we know sort of implementing predictive maintenance can be challenging. But from a CMMS perspective, Greg, what's your sort of take on that? What do organisations need to think about? What mistakes often occur during
the most common mistake that I've seen, and I still continue to see, I don't really know how to solve it, but the most common kind of pitfall is seeking out, acquiring a CMMS or similar type platform, and then not really doing much with it. And what I mean by that is sometimes when we as an organization initiate a project to either replace or find for the first time a CMMS or a similar technology, that's a lot of work in and of itself. And then once that's done, there can be, I don't know if I call it a cooling period, but there's a period of time where we can lose the kind of buy-in and the vigor for the project that's ahead of us, because the project we just did, we landed it. Okay, we made our choice, we selected it. The other thing that happens with that is once you have successful deployments and you have buy-in, you've got good frontline worker adoption, leadership's getting their appropriate KPIs. You're starting to get those outcomes, right? You're essentially reducing some of your downtime, because any reduction in downtime is going to be highly impactful in one way, shape, or form, because you're eliminating a lot of waste. What invariably happens is there can be another series of tuning out, where maybe your champion leaves the company and other people are less bought in on leveraging the platform and using it. A new leader or manager of some kind parachutes in and says, oh, I don't like that system, and we're going to get this one because I love that one, and I've been working with them for 15, 20 years, right? And the team's over there going, whoa, we've had this 2-3 years. We love this. We're getting good stuff done. And like, I don't care. Those things can happen too. But what is really important when you select, implement, deploy, and start using your CMMS is that you have a cadence, a regular schedule of reinforcement with your team, regular check-ins. How's this going? Hey, you're all doing good with completing items. You're getting good details in there. You need that practice, because you have to maintain the things that you use to do better maintenance in your various environments, whether they're facility-centric, manufacturing-centric. It could be land subdivisions. It's not set it and forget it, and that's where all the risks lie. And then there's that one last one. Sometimes we get hooked up with vendors that don't care about anything but the top line and the bottom line, and everything else in between for them is just not a thing. They'll say it, but they won't do it. And everybody's got to be careful out there with people that are talking that don't actually know what they're talking about. They haven't done it. They haven't been there. They're not getting out on the plant floor. They're not going to their client sites. They're not listening and learning. I'm big on that. A lot of people can be brought into the industry and be better if they can make the time. And then there's also the struggles for vendors that, they're trying to do good work and they might not have the resources or the bandwidth. And that's another thing that kind of flips it to the other side. Sorry, buddy. Yeah.
We'll be finished soon.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's quite interesting. I was just thinking where to go next with that. So it sounds like it's very similar. It's like a technology challenge. So it's actually not specific to CMMS products at all. You could have said predictive maintenance on nodded along to, you said things like, buying and with stakeholders. I guess one thing I was interested in, she said, either replacing or bringing in a new system. I mean, on balance, all the companies you spoke to, were they replacing their existing CMMS, or was it a new installation? Or was that quite hard to answer? Maybe?
That's a really great question, because I've thought about it regularly throughout my career in CMMS, but I've gotten better at the way I think about it in recent years. And what I mean by that is, I do think we're always going to be working with those that need their first CMMS or some type of technology to essentially, I like to call it web enabling what they do on paper, or moving from spreadsheets into technology platforms that can actually do a bit more. You can do a lot with those spreadsheets, but that's what it is. I don't know if I like calling it digital transformation. So we're always going to be looking for that. We're always going to be seeing that, because so many, it's shocking. It is shocking. The organizations, big or small or in between, that do not have software solutions for this aspect of their enterprise. It is bonkers. However, there's also been a lot in my years of either what we call a rip and replace, where you're trying to inspire someone to move away from their platform. I think that's okay if they're having problems and not getting their outcomes. Otherwise, that's just about selling. And hey, do what you do. I'm not high and mighty. The thing that can really cause the problem, though, is what I was talking about before, where there's successful initiatives with platforms that are brought in, they're paid for, and they essentially become shelfware. They sit on a shelf and collect dust because people have kind of tuned out and they're not using it, but they're so committed because they spent so much and it just goes nowhere. That creates another opportunity where hey, we need a different CMMS or EAM because nobody's using the one that we have. I encourage everyone to just take a beat right there and assess that, even if you have to hire someone to help you assess it, because you probably have what you need. And it's probably more about reinvigorating the team, getting that stuff kind of connected. However, if stuff doesn't work, if it's broken, if reports don't come out accurately, if you're trying to get access to your data and the company's data access button is broken and they're not fixing it, any of those types of things, those are opportunities for you to improve and find a vendor that cares about you. If they don't care about you, just move on. It happens all the time for one reason or another. Again, that soapbox is always nearby, Niall.
But I think you illustrate a very interesting point there, and very clearly that it's not always a technology problem. So I'd say you could have the right technology, and as you put it, gathering dust on a shelf. But if no one's using the technology or getting value from it, then it's not much use still. So replace it with another technology with that example doesn't make sense at all.
Yeah, that's like that's like having a warehouse that you let get disarray, loaded up, dirty, grimy, and you just move to a different warehouse and you do the same thing over and over again. I mean, it's the same general kind of activities and behaviors, and that's where the issues all lie. Everybody's in on it, like meaning everybody plays a role in the success or failure of your technology initiatives, and a lot of times that's going to come down to not doing the basics very well and overcomplicating everything, which that's another kind of pet peeve of mine is, complicating things that necessarily inherently require simplicity is so common. It's too common.
No, exactly, 100%. And I guess maybe the way looking at the broader picture, as you've been in the industry a long time, you've seen that evolve, and obviously it's continuing to evolve as well. But where do you see sort of next big trends in sort of maintenance? Where are we sort of heading next with regards to? It might be part of the thing is technology isn't the only solution, as we've been discussing to it. But yeah, I'd be interested to get your thoughts, Greg.
Well, I think so. I did mention I think there's going to be a bit more of a shakeout when it comes to AI and better leveraging of AI within CMMS platforms. I think that's going to happen, but there's still going to be a high risk of surface level stuff that doesn't do much. I think that's going to continue. Again, I don't know if I'm right about this, but I feel like maybe it's hope. Maybe it's hope that a focus on the basics and actually doing the work that needs to be done is going to make more of a comeback. But I think this is a cycle we see again and again and again, where we know that we see it improve and then it goes off the rails. But as far as where the industry is going, two things. I think there's going to be more of a kind of visual element to the platforms and the way technology is leveraged. I think that's going to be more of a thing. And I think it will be real. I think a couple of companies will get that right so that it's actually impactful and it's not just putting lipstick on a pig of a system to attract you. The other thing I've been thinking about for about a year or two is, wouldn't it be nice if you could talk to your CMMS, not open up the thing and then press the thing and press the microphone, but on your phone or your mobile, but to actually have a dialogue with it. And I think that could happen if somebody gets the AI right. It can't be based on just nonsense or, your little GPTs going out and scrubbing the internet for a bunch of nonsense information. You gotta have enough control over what it knows so that it recognizes its own blind spots. But I love this idea that you could be a little bit more hands-free and actually talk to your CMMS instead of having to key everything in. I think it would be cool, and I think it would be impactful. It just has to be real. And I know a couple of companies, I can't talk about them, that are working on some of those things. There's also a couple out there leveraging AI in their platform that is real. That's actually, they took a long time before loading it in there, like a year. They built everything for a year straight. And that's the kind of approach I'd like to see happening a little bit more. But there's pressures, right? You gotta hit your numbers. So there's that. And from here we could spin out. I mean, I don't think we're going to be doing telepathy CMMS, or where like right now I'm sending you a couple of work orders with my brain. Maybe in 100 years, I don't know. But that's kind of it. I hope it's a trend of a focus on the basics, doing better with engaging your people and your process first. I hope that's a trend. I think AI is going to improve, but there's going to need to be more of a washout so things fall by the wayside and we figure out who's got just shiny stuff that doesn't do anything. And then that virtual aspect as well as potential to talk to your maintenance management solution. I think that'll be something that might actually happen.
Yeah, the actual talking to. I quite like that point. I mean, it sort of aligns with, like Google's Gemini, for example, which I've sort of started using, personally and stuff. And you could just have a conversation, and like what feels like an actual conversation. But the other thing is, someone mentioned this internally. There was a food and beverage customer who requested, of our own co-pilot, whether you could have voice, because every time they have to key something in, it has to be wiped down and, for hygiene, cleanliness reasons. But if you don't need to type anything, you just say, use voice activator, then obviously that saves that little bit of time and obviously any hygiene risk as well. So I thought it was quite interesting from that point of view as well. In that particular industry, I'm sure there's other industries as well that would benefit from that.
Yeah, definitely. The thing about this whole industry is we can go in so many directions. And as much as I come off from a righteous perspective, I'm just trying to make a difference. I want to help everybody. I want to help the vendors be the best they possibly can be. I want to help the clients, the users, get as much out of their platforms as possible by focusing on those basics and actually getting moving really, really well. I love that. And then the consultants, the ones, I know a lot of them that have very high integrity and want to make a difference. I want to help all of those. And that's the loftiest thing about CMMS Radio. You can't help everybody, but I just keep trying, and I'm always going to do that. I don't know. I think that's probably clear by the way I talk, and I'm really into it, man. You can tell.
Well, exactly. Yeah, I mean, don't start a podcast about something without being passionate. Or if you do, I mean, the whole point of podcasts, you have to be passionate about it. And hopefully it comes across I'm quite passionate in my interviewing. This industry is obviously incredibly fascinating, lots of things going on. But when you mentioned CMMS Radio, so that's what I was going to touch on, of course, as well. And you sort of mentioned it there about sort of educating, how much of an impact you feel it's made on, because you must have people saying to you, I heard this episode and that episode, but what sort of impact has that made on the industry as well? Because, an industry that requires a lot of education, as we all know.
So, when I think about that, there's a lot of ways I think I could answer, but first of all, I get feedback about people that work together because they heard about something on the podcast. Somebody heard something from somebody else and then they got in touch and they solved a problem. What more could you ask for? The other thing is it also kind of inspires different people to get in touch that want to either share their journey story, talk about some areas of their own passion within maintenance and reliability, facilities, etc. That's very, very kind of rewarding in and of itself, because what we all really need out here is real deal journey stories, real talk, not a bunch of talking heads. Like you and I are having a natural conversation. We're not going for some outcome. I'm not trying to sell anything. Neither of us are, and we're talking pretty real. I've left the profanity on the desk, but I think that's what I'm seeing, is that people are learning a little here and there. It's inspiring some critical thinking, and it's helping people get some things done, because some of the people, like I said, that have been on or that have listened have started working together. And then I get to hear about how well they're doing as a result of that in different manufacturing environments or related, working with a software company or working with a consultant. That's one of my favorite things about this whole deal, aside from the conversations themselves. This is my favorite thing to do right here. Just chop it up, go on a little journey. Not sure what you're going to ask me. You never know how I'm going to answer. And that's a blast.
exactly, like a normal conversation. You're having a normal conversation, right? So,
Yeah.
And it really is great. I mean, obviously the best episode is the one when I appeared on. Don't know what episode number that was, but check that one out. Maybe we'll share it in the show notes. But yeah, I guess for today, Greg, been really fascinating to get your insight. I've wanted to invite you on for quite a long time, and I guess also, from a personal perspective, we're in completely different time zones as well, so it's always tricky to put it in. I'm really pleased you came on. I guess just before we finish, we like to sort of summarise a little bit and just think about, with CMMS, with all of your experience, if someone's looking to introduce let's say a new CMMS system, I know they could be replacing or new, and it depends, but what are the key sort of things people need to think about in short? And I know, just to summarise it, I guess.
Yep. So number one, make sure you've got the people and process kind of dialed in first. What I mean by this is, include your frontline workforce, include your doers, mix in the operators, leaders that are involved in this project, get together on it, and don't overcomplicate what you're going to select. And then when you get to that stage of selecting, right? So now you've got kind of an end in mind, you've got your people in your process, you know why you're getting this technology. Those vendors that you talk to, vet them pretty hard, but you also don't need to talk to 30 vendors. Try to get to a quick short list, and don't think, God, there's hundreds of systems. Have we seen everything? You don't need that. What you need is somebody who understands you, understands your business, and they actually can not just talk the talk, but walk the talk. And you will know that if you ask them really, really hard questions. And I throw in on that, hey, vendors, do that for your potential clients. Don't just tell them you can help them when you know you can't. Got to be righteous, right? But for those that are on that journey, also, everybody's welcome to hit me up or at least follow the podcast, and I can find people that I feel really comfortable for you working with, to actually refer you. I don't always do that. I try to stay agnostic, but I'm here to help. But keep it simple. Know what you're doing. Be open to the possibility that this is going to make a difference. Put your vendors to the test when it comes to the questions. Don't be afraid to ask them something that you think is going to cause them to recoil. Because if they do, you just solved your problem in 5 minutes flat, and you can go find a different vendor. That's not a hate thing. That is a reality thing. Don't don't go to a burger joint looking for steak.
No, exactly. So yeah, and I think, like I said, it's important the selection of vendors. Don't create such a long list that it just becomes such an unmanageable process. A short list is best, and find a vendor. Yeah, it's a two-way street. It has to fit both sides. Otherwise, as we've seen with technology deployments, it just doesn't work. If it's not a good fit for a vendor, then the vendor should be able to say, this maybe isn't a good fit. But
I love those vendors more than any of them.
Yeah,
I don't care who you are. If you got the guts and the integrity to say, no, we're not the right fit, talk to these people or those people. Wow, that is the stuff, man.
Exactly, because it puts the customer at the centre, not the product or the technology that you have. But yeah, I think that's a good place to end. So what we'll do. I guess one more question. You mentioned the podcast, which we can link to, Greg. Is there any other places where people can find out more about you?
Well, I mostly focus on LinkedIn, so CMMS Radio company page. Definitely follow that. You can see the episodes, and there's some postings and clips and things like that. Definitely engage there. I'm pretty easy to find on LinkedIn as well, so you can connect with me there. It's on Spotify. There's a YouTube channel mostly to house the videos, but again, focused on LinkedIn. It's where I like to play and engage and learn a lot from all these different people struggling or people that know how to solve problems. There is a website, cmmsradio.com. You can check that out too. And really just, for everybody out there, even if you don't get in touch, check it out. Have a listen to some of the episodes. There's well over 100 now. And usually you can find something cool in every episode to take away.
Exactly, definitely. And we'll link to a lot, all of those resources, or at least the ones we remember to.
Yeah.
there's lots of different things. We'll link to them in the resources so people can easily access those too. But yeah, for now, thank you again, Greg, for your time and sharing your expertise. You know, we like to invite our favourites back, so you might get another invite back. Actually, I'll confirm it. I will invite you back. So
I'd love to join you because we got a lot more to talk about. Niall, thanks for having me on, man. I really appreciate it, and I appreciate what you're doing with your podcast.
No, fantastic. Thank you again, and thank you everyone out there for listening. And we'll see you on the next episode. Thank you very much.
Please like and subscribe on all major podcast channels and find out more about Senseye Predictive Maintenance at Siemens.com.